What's going on, Kingdom Matters, Diplomatters? This your boy Tyreek. I'm gonna give you guys about 2 minutes before I get started. 2 minutes. This is a 2 minute before I get started. All right, all right, all right. What's going on, guys? I hope you're doing well. Oh man, what a week! What a week! What a week! What a past 7, 8, 9 days. Uh, been through juggling, family, a whole bunch of other things, as I'm sure you guys are. I hope you're doing well. Obviously, can you believe that it's actually Tuesday again already? It seemed like I was just up there not too long ago. So, hope you guys are well. Hope your families are well. Hope you had a last, 7 days of fruitfulness. I'm going to be as brief as possible with this. This is going to be a concentrated teaching and kind of going back to the basics, although I leave, or should I say, I weave a lot of basics every week in because just like riding a bike, just like just like swimming, for instance, once you learn the basics, you practice. I learned how to swim when I was 8 in the third grade, and 98% of it was here between the ears, right? Hopefully, you guys remember, especially if you follow me for quite some time, you remember me talking about, um, you know, when you do something over and over, you have that fear, something you haven't tried before, right? And obviously, fear, there's some healthy fear. And what I mean by that is, as a little 2 year old, obviously, a 1 year old who doesn't really understand, fear in a sense that, it's more like caution, shall I say, right? But not the negative fear that actually affects us, I'm not sure if you know this, but researchers have found out when you're in fear mode, obviously that jams up your computer, and 1,400 reactions happen, chemical reactions happen in your body. And obviously that is not normal. That's not how we were created. So, but anyway, there I go, start teaching already. So again, I hope you guys have had a great week. Hopefully, again, it was fruitful. Um, so I had my hands full with family and businesses and just life, right? And no matter what's going on, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, time waits for no one, right? So as you guys already know, the best way to harness, and I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it because it's part of the basics. This is part of leadership, what you are, no matter what you were told. And if nobody ever told you that, you are a leader trapped in a follower, right? Just like I said, that every person's future is not ahead of them, it's actually hidden on the inside of them. And if you understand and look at everything, these ideas, my shirt, my pants, the shoes that I got on, the DVD player, the chair, the bed, all these are ideas, right? And these ideas, if you remember last week, right here, idea. Hopefully you guys remember this. Last week, oh, and by the way, let me go back a little bit. So, welcome to the newbies. And hopefully, if you like the content that I'm going to share, that I like to say, I came up with a word last week. What was that word? Oh, man, what was that word? It's it was like combining two words. I should have wrote it down. I was driving actually. It's amazing what kind of ideas you can come up with when you're in the shower, when you're driving. You don't have the music on. Oh, and by the way, here's something that you might have not noticed. Now that we're on, I talked about this last week. Did you know that here's a fun fact? But here's a fact that actually will affect you every day. So if you listen to the radio, you can look this up. I think, if I remember correctly, the general level of hearing, as far as sound, tuning to our ears, where our brain is normal, right? So you've seen, some of you've been through an EKG before, right? And and you have those little wavy lines. Some of you've seen the stock market. You see it, on the news and everything. You see all those little wavy lines and everything like that. Well, the normal, general, healthy, there we go, healthy wave, a brain wave of, as far as sound, because sound affects everybody, right? Um, I think it was 14 hertz, and it was decided 1940s or 50s, somewhere around there. I think it was by the Rockefellers, right? And he came up with an idea to increase that. And the reason why he wanted to increase it is it messes with your pineal gland, which is right here in your forehead, right? So there's an attack on our pineal gland for the last 70, 80 years, right? You ever talk to somebody who 1 second seems like they're fine, normal, as far as the eye can see, and then maybe 30 seconds, a minute later on, they're very agitated and they're nervous and everything? That has to do with the hertz, right? Sound and frequency. And I told you that it affects you, right? Matter of fact, a lot of holistic doctors, you can research this yourself, have found ways to kill cancer with sound, right? Isn't that cool? And also light, right? But let me stay on this. So it was increased by 0.5, and see, one little minute change in frequency can agitate a person. I'll give you an example. So I was, I can't remember where this was. I can't remember who I heard it from, but I'll never forget it. So these people were at a concert, and because I heard that fact, and by the way, Rockefeller did it as far as it's part of the control mechanism, right? So you got the Rockefellers, which is actually not their real name. It was changed some years ago. You got the Rothschilds, you got Bilderbergs, you got all kind of people right out there who basically deem themselves better than you and I. And if you do research in that, them people are schizophrenic and wacko. A lot of incest. I wasn't even going to say this, but for some reason, people need to hear this. but they control a lot of the society. But here's one thing that you need to understand. When that switch was made, and I obviously had to, from 14 hertz to 14 and a half, I believe it was. This is on the radio. It's not tuned to the right frequency, therefore it agitates you and I, right? So if you're listening to the radio, you may want to turn it down some or take breaks from that, because literally it's messing with your pineal gland, right? And it's messing with your DNA also too. So you should I even go there? Okay. It makes people schizophrenic. Okay, everybody knows what that is, right? It's just like the stock market. It's like Bitcoin, right? You ever see the Bitcoin and it kind of goes all that? It has to do with human nature, right? So I dropped a huge nugget for some people that may pick that up, what I just said. So again, as I said, it's a control mechanism, right? Because if you're always irritable, if you're always schizophrenic, you can't understand and you can't focus on this. Okay. Let me put this up on the board so you can kind of get a grasp of it. If you're new in here, thank you for joining me. Look at a lot of my content. Some of the content that I do talk about is like reiteration. Kind of some of it's new, so if you want to kind of get the whole gist of my whole channel, obviously it's for educational purposes. I guarantee you the school that you go to won't talk about a lot of this stuff right here, and you can go research it. I want you to research it. Don't take my word for it. Okay. It doesn't matter who I'm listening to, and if I know somebody and I've known them for years, I'm going to research it, right? Because you have to provide evidence. See, life is about jurisdiction. Okay, jurisdiction is based on law. Okay, so what is law? You got land, you got air, and you got water, right? You got contracts, right? You got things that everybody's always in some type of contract. Read the fine print, right? Because the devil is in the details. I'll just leave that right there. But law, okay, jurisdiction. Every human being is part of some type of jurisdiction, right? And most people don't even understand actually where the word law came from and the origins of law. Well, if you go back to my previous podcast, you'll understand I talked about the Bible is not a religious book. It's a law book, right? It's about legality. It's about government. It's about a country, an invisible country called the kingdom of heaven. And the creator, right? Some people call him Yeshua HaMashiach. Yeshua, right? That's his name. Jesus Christ is just his title, right? Many people think it's a religious book, but they would be 100% wrong. Even many Christians believe that's a religious book, and you're talking to someone who used to be a Christian, right? But if you understand those terms, and you have to understand what I had up here, concepts and precepts. So I don't have time to get back into that, but that basically molds and shapes everything how you see yourself, right? Which leads me into this. Okay, so some things I'm going to touch, some things I'm not going to go deep into. You can just look at my previous podcast. I got a lot of shorts in there and everything like that. I drop little hints here or there. So this channel, this podcast is about, it's kind of like a 1,000-piece puzzle. I like puzzles, right? And life is like a puzzle, right? Revelation knowledge, you can't get the whole picture, right? Like you guys see this whole board, you can't get the whole picture, right? So it's going to be a piece here, right? A piece there, a piece over here, a piece over there. You get what I'm trying to say, right? Or you can say this tree. Okay, remember, I don't know if you guys were with me last week, I drew this tree right here. So it's like a piece here, a piece there, a piece there, right? And one of my favorite artists, outside of our children. All four of our children are artistic. They can draw. They can draw like crazy. They're great, and they're still discovering and still mastering that gift of art. But anyway, so where was I going with that? Well, anyway, let's just go ahead and get into this. So, okay, so last week I talked about precepts. What is a precept? It means before, and sept means idea. It means basically what you're thinking without saying something. You can't tell what I'm thinking until I say something, right? I can't tell what you're thinking unless you say something, right? You know, one of our kids, you know, he's very good at this. He's very good at observing behaviors. He's read a lot of research on that. You know, our son, and he's not a master at it. He's learning, but he's very good at that. Another thing, you ladies are very good at that, right? You ladies are very good. My wife is not my wife, my helpmate. She's very good at that, right? There's a difference between wife and helpmate, but that's a whole nother topic. But very, very good at that, you know, because men, we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're linear thinkers. Women think, you know, 1, -5, square root of 3, the hypotenuse of the sun, right? The catacorner perpendicular of Saturn with the reverse osmosis and catalytic converter. You get what I'm trying to say. That's how it's just their nature. They can be all. That's why they can handle kids really well and take care of that, and then they can jump over here and take care of that and everything. It's just their nature, right? So together that makes one unit, right? One unit. This is one ruler, so it makes it one unit, right? So it's like that's what you call a covenant or institution. Okay. Now, so I talked about the precepts before you say something. That's your precept, your thinking, your ideas. And then when you say something, I talked about concept. Con means one, and sept means idea. So when you let a person talk, like I'm talking right now, I'm sharing, I'm educating, right? I'm drawing out, I'm pulling out what's been put inside me. I'm giving you a picture. So that's why if you're new in here, you're just only getting a piece of the puzzle. See, when you look at news overall, just here, and let me clarify this too. In every government, every country, there's propaganda, right? Now, what I mean by that, you can, if you don't know what propaganda means, look it up. Okay, it's not good. It's basically a concept of sharing what the people of that country, a certain idea that they want the government, they want you to see in your mind of how the government is, right? And there's a word called counterfeit. There's a word called hypocrite, right? Hypocrite came from the Greeks. There's the Greek people again, right? I love Greeks. But according to Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle, if you do a little bit of research, they came up with, as I said before, the leadership philosophy. If you didn't look like me, you're my slave, right? And that's why we have a lot of these problems going on around the world and here and other countries, right? We're all interconnected because of the financial system, right? But as I said before, is if you're new, you got to go back and put pieces of the puzzle together, right? I encourage you to always take some notes, right? Okay, take some notes. All right. So, all right. So precept, concept. I talked about this. I talked about the soul. You guys probably remember that right there. The soul. You know, mind, will, emotions, and intellect. So, getting back to that small example that I was talking about not too long ago, towards the beginning, is that it was changed from, I believe it was 14 to 14.5. So that causes our brain, right? That causes our brain to be schizophrenic, right? So again, when you're messing with that radio, when you're listening to radio, and you could be in a good mood before you step into the car, in about 5, 10, 15 minutes, you can be in the bad mood, right? You can give somebody a number one sign, right? Somebody gave me the number one sign not too long ago. I said, yeah, I am number one. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm number one. Hey. All right. All right, let's go on. So here's a quick recap from last week, okay? So I said, who am I and why am I here? Okay? Who am I and why am I here? Okay? So it's very simple, guys. Identity, right? If you don't know who you are, then you're not going to understand why you're here. And if you're not going to understand why you're here, you're not going to know who you are. It's really simple, right? Here's the problem with a lot of our society. Now, here's what I notice. We get drunk on entertainment. We get drunk on a lot of things that are frivolous, right? They're time, what I like to call time busters. You should write that down. What's a time buster in your life? Think about your schedule. Are you just, we're creatures of habit, and that's for a reason. That can hurt you or that can help you, right? It's a two-edged sword. You can waste time or you can harness time. Some of you out there rode horses before, right? They have that little seat, and then you got that little bit that they put in the mouth of the horse. You know, you can harness time like that. How do you harness time? Well, here's a quick leadership tip. Here's how I learned to harness time. Priorities. Okay? Some of you are burning up so much time. I don't know why I'm going to this, but somebody needs to hear this. You're wasting so much time that everything goes by within a week, and you're like, what the heck did I just do? You just wasted a week of your life. 768 hours in a week. You wasted it, right? I've been there before, right? Okay. Video games. Oh my gosh, if I could have that back. If I could just have half of it back. Oh my Lord. Okay. So, you know what? So, okay. Let's just go ahead and do this. So you got important, versus, let's do another color, urgent. Okay, my cat threw up. That's urgent. Okay, my dog peed on the rug, right? Pooped on the rug. What else could it be? My kid stubbed his or her toe. Okay. Now, you get what I'm trying to say. It could be something small. It could be something, if it's something greater, and you can tell by that. If the kid is just blurts out crying, hey, I better stop what I'm doing. I need to find out what's going on, right? And by the way, here's a tip. If you have little kids, if you show fear and worry, you show it on your face. That's body language, 90% of communication. I learned that in the book. A lot of stuff I learned in the book, okay? Lots and lots and lots of reading and applying principles, laws, right? And you show that in your face, that kid is going to cry, right? I distinctively remember that with our kids. And guess what? When I didn't show fear or when I didn't worry or anything like that, most of the time they didn't, right? They just wanted to see if I did, okay? So that was a quick tip for parenting right there. All right. So in other words, don't get rid of fear, right? Everybody has it at some level, right? You got the good kind and you got the caution, right? You got caution versus fear. That's a whole other topic in itself. You should look up the definitions of that, okay? So you got important and you got urgent. Okay, this is how you harness time right here. So you got the most important things right here. Here's what I like to do with myself. I take time out, and actually I'm just being honest with you. Even more honest, I need to take more time out planning. Okay, I need to take more time out planning, but I take a few minutes here, there, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here, and everything like that to really think about my schedule, trying to balance everything, and I say, okay, what's most important? What's urgent, right? And see, these things can change within a period of time, right? This can happen here. This is important. That can happen here. You're in a meeting, right? For your job, right? Or you're in a business meeting. You're owner of a company, or maybe you're retired, or maybe you're at school, right? And you're paying attention. Okay, that's urgent. You need to pay attention. You're paying for school. Whatever this is, whatever that is, that's urgent up under there, right? You have to look up those definitions right there to see the difference. Okay, I'm just trying to give you an illustration in your mind. Now, the important thing, is that while you're at that urgent thing, say you're in class and, somebody, say your best friend texts you, hey, one of my best friends got into a car wreck. One of our best friends got into a car wreck, and you grew up with that person and they're in critical condition. Well, that's important, right? Let's say you're a dad or a mom, or let's say, you're out there on your lawn and you want to spend time with your children, right? And let's say, all of a sudden somebody loses control of the car and bam, they hit your car while it's parked pretty hard, tear up the whole front right there, right? Okay, now time with your kids are very important. Matter of fact, I just said something that was really important. So that's important, time with your kids. Well, what happened here is that somebody hit the car and that became urgent and important, right? It was something that just popped up, but then right here it became very important. Why? Because what did I say before? We're in some type of jurisdiction. We need to know law, right? You have insurance companies involved in that. You have people, the person that hit your car involved in that, right? You have to tend to it. You got to call the police. You got to get a police report and all that type of stuff. And years ago, you didn't have to do all this type of stuff. But I'll go up that. I'll bark up that tree another time and everything like that. It's a lot of fraud. I'll just leave it like that in the whole thing. But I'm just trying to give you an example of that. Okay, it might have been. That might have not been the best example and everything like that, but that's how I harness time. Is very important versus urgent. Okay, that's what you have to do every time per week. You have to allot yourself time, okay, per week to do that, whether it be an hour, whether 2 hours. It doesn't matter. Whatever life that you're leading, you have to prioritize your time. That's how you harness time. Now, that time is going to be folded into your vision. So that's going to be for a later date. Okay, your vision. If you don't know what that is, that's basically something that you have to write down. Write down your vision upon tablets, right? Habakkuk 2:2 and the Kingdom Constitution talks about that, right? You can't focus on anything if you don't know what you're going after, right? You have to have a GPS, okay? You have to write down whatever area that you want to improve in. Write it down, write it in detail, set a date, right? Set a date and then stretch yourself 10%. That's how you grow, okay? All right, now let me go ahead and get back into this. So who am I? Okay, this is just a real brief recap from that before I get into the other three. Okay, I put down here identity, okay? Most people, when you ask them, what do they say? Job title. They tell you their past, they talk about, their fashion industry. Just listen to people, what they start explaining and how they start explaining. I've been guilty of it, okay? Because I grew up in this capitalistic society, material-based society, right? And I was thinking about this earlier. See, money does not exist. It's just matter. Anything that takes up space, it's just energy. And energy is attracted or repelled, right? According to this is the most important real estate on the planet. Is between these 6 inches between your ears, your brain. Okay, I said that many times before. That's the most important real estate. This determines where we go and don't go. Remember what I talked about before about the Hertz? Why do you think the Rockefellers did that? You can't focus on the things that are important and urgent in life, right? You can't focus on your vision, right? You can't, all this entertainment, they call it, some people call it porn entertainment, right? Overindulging. You see what I'm saying? This has an effect on your real estate, right? I like to liken it to a farmer. Okay, it talks about that in Mark 4 in the Constitution, in the Bible, right? Jesus talks about that, right? God in the flesh, Jesus. He talks about that the sower sowed the seed. The seed is the word, okay? The seed is the word. Now the sower sowed the seed, right? But here's something right here you probably never thought of. Who gave the sower the seed? Are you listening to me? Who gave him the seed? Who gave her the seed? Who gave him the precept? Who gave them the thinking? When I said the brain, right? This is your brain, right? This is you, all right, right? Right, that's a mega brain right there, huh? But you get what I'm trying to say, right? So who gave you the precept right here? Who gave you the thinking? Who gave you the idea? Okay? Anyway, so who am I? Identity. Where should it come from? Should it come from the job, title? Should it come from your past, your present? Should it come from your future? Should it come from the fashion industry, right? Most people's self-image is tied to the fashion industry. Michael Jordan's, I got Gucci this. I got, what's all the other stuff? I don't keep up with that type of stuff, right? Those people believed enough in themselves to create their own fashion, create their own brand. Why can't you? Okay? You're an artist. You're a poem. You're a poem. You are a poem. You are actually a poem, right? You do poetry. What's another thing? Whatever your talent and ability is, okay? Why can't you be the one to do that, right? Here's a tip right here. When you start doubting yourself, because doubt and fear go hand in hand, they're power twins. Ask yourself why. Okay, even write down the list. Okay, I can't do that. The thought comes, I can't do that. Okay, write on a piece of paper. Type in your phone. Why not? Why can't I do it? Write it down. It's something when you put paper, right? You take a pen to a paper. It's something that activates, right? Your reticular automation. I think it's your reticular automation system, right? Where your eye sees it and you're actually writing stuff down. It's connecting to your mind. All this stuff I've learned before, okay? And you can look it up yourself. These are just little nuggets that I'm dropping to you that kind of help you out, that's helped me out and continues to help me out. So write down, why not? Okay? If somebody says you can't do this, if 5 people say you can't do this, if 20 people say you can't do this, why not? Write it down. Okay, I failed before. See, your brain, you have to understand how your brain works. It only goes based upon your experiences in your past. You haven't experienced something in the future yet. So it can only pull from the past. It's a computer bank. So what do you expect it to do? Right? It took me years to figure out. Okay? Just because you failed at something before, who says it was a failure? Right? Fail forward. Learn from what you didn't do that you should have done, or you didn't do, right, that you should have did. You get what I'm trying to say. Okay? Just listen to this recording several times. All right, let me get back on track. Okay. So, you have to understand we've been conditioned to hate ourselves. Listen to me now. We've been purged of the consciousness a lot of us have in our minds of who we truly are. I don't care what religion you're part of. I'm not part of any religion, but you're part of the human family, and I care about people. Are you listening to me? I care about that homeless man, homeless woman with kids by herself. Are you understanding me? I'm not going to tell you everything that I do behind closed doors, okay? Or outside of this, you know. There's some things that you do for people you don't need to say anything about, okay? You just let your Father in heaven reward you. And it's, see, I understand that nothing belongs to me. Are you listening to me? Nothing belongs to me. What I read in that Constitution in the Bible is that I'm just a steward and I'm a manager. So the better I understand and the better I know, understand, and apply, which is wisdom, that's what wisdom means, application, the law of management, right? The more things are attracted to me. Then I say it was energy, money's energy. So don't chase, listen to me now, do not chase money. I promise you, it'll kill you. That stuff will kill you. Do you know how many people right now are in hell? Did he say hell? Yeah, I said hell. Hell is a place of incarceration. You know, not enough people are talking about this. Okay? Hell is a place of incarceration. Where do you think the idea of incarceration came from? Prison. It didn't come from man. Mankind didn't invent anything. We were invented. We were created, right? And we have the ability to do what the Creator showed us to do, right? Didn't I tell you that He took us out of Himself before? See, there's a lot of people in this world that do not want me to share the things that I'm sharing with you with. I can go on different social media platforms and it shows one person's viewing this. And then I go back later on and it's 40, 50, 60, 70 plus viewing this, right? I guarantee you, right? It's written in the code. AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Artificial, fake, fiat, fallacy, okay? Synthetic. Are you listening to me? All right. Let's get back to this. All right. So, again, my heritage, my lineage, please don't get hung up on that. We're all mixed up. If you're still on the boat, oh my gosh, every time I hear this, sometimes it irks me, but I'm growing above that. But there's just some things that I'm like, but for the grace of God, they go I. If you're still wrapped up in the whole Democrat Republican thing, oh my gosh, that is so much old news. You've missed it. You're down here with the little kids playing in a sandbox. I can't believe he said that. Yes, you are. How do I know? Because I used to do it. Right? The people that are out there with the whole controlling the mechanisms and certain things with money and all that stuff like that, that's what they want you to do while they're stealing your life. All of you listening to me right now, whether you're in Africa, I forgot the original name of Africa, Europe, Australia, it doesn't matter where you're listening to me at. Okay, underground, above ground, on planet Mars, I don't care. I don't give a rip. I don't care what your motivation or intentions are. You should understand that the greatest thing God can give us is the ability to decide. I learned that some years ago. You have no idea, because all this stuff is going on, entertainment, everything like that. We think we're accomplishing things, but we're like a hamster on a wheel. The ability to decide is godlike. Small caps. Small caps, I said. And that has to do with dominion. Remember I said that last week with Genesis 1:26. That is the command He programmed into you, into me, is to have dominion, not over people. That's one of the greatest sins. And remember what I said last week. Sin is not a religious word, okay? It's a government word. It's a law-based word. What is law again? Land, air, water. If you're on any of those, you have to have jurisdiction. You have to understand, In jurisdiction, what is it? What did I say last week? It means right words. You need to understand the English of that. You need to understand the Latin of that. The even as goes deep as the Hebrew of that. Why? Because everybody's part of that. We were born into it. So if you don't, why do you think we weren't taught that in school? Hello. Why do you tell me something? We're engaged with law every day, but we don't really know. There's very few people that can even understand and talk about the, just in a natural standpoint, the Constitution. I vaguely remember studying that when I was younger, or them talking about that when I was younger. Okay, vaguely, right? And it started phasing out as I got older, right? But that was my environment, right? And it didn't just happen with me, it happened all around the US, the corporation, US Incorporated. Well, they're no longer incorporated because they went bankrupt, or they were bankrupt back in 2020, 2021. So it's White House Inc. now, Incorporated, which is under the District of Columbia, which is a foreign territory, which they're incorporated also too. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up. Just don't go to the first thing, because Google's not going to tell you the truth. Remember, hey, Google, a lot of these search engines, they're already programmed. Artificial intelligence is programmed, all based upon the people who have this and who control this, have the power. They have the power to do certain things, the authority in certain areas, right? Because if you research something one time and you believe it and it's a lie, guess what? You start regurgitating that over and over again. You start meditating on that, and then you tell somebody else, right? And then they tell somebody else, and before you know it, you said something 6 months ago, and there's 10,000 people that now know something, depending upon your sphere of influence, right? How much you're able to influence people. They believe a lie, right? Now, if they're smart, what they'll do is they'll go research that and cross-reference, and then they'll dig even deeper, right? And even then, they'll still give it some time. This is stuff I had to learn the hard way, right? We all have to learn it, right? And this is what I'm sharing with you so you won't be duped next time somebody says something. So by all means, please research a lot of stuff that I'm saying. Pick 1 or 2, 3 things and research it, okay? Right? I'm a man. I could be wrong, okay? But let's just say I don't like saying anything that I completely don't believe in, or completely maybe that part don't understand, right? I'm very reluctant in saying that. And I don't even mind coming before you guys and say, hey, you know what, I was wrong about that. I've said that before on my podcast. I misspoke on that one. It was that one. Why? Because we're all learning, right? Right? Do me a favor. Put in the chat box 1 if you're still learning. Or do you know it all? Okay? Right? So we're all still learning. I still learn from people, right? I learn what not to do. That's a really good thing, right? And I learn what to do, right? But for me, it all has to be based on laws, right? Laws govern everything. And I'm not just talking about, how can I put this? I'm just not talking about the basics of government. I'm talking about unseen laws or spiritual laws and natural law. So you have to understand, so you got to keep this in the back of your mind, and I have to reiterate this to myself. A spirit created all matter, right? Everything you see in the seen came from the unseen, right? Tuesday is not here unless you're ahead, 12 hours or something like that, and you're watching this, right? But Tuesday is not here, right? If you're in the EST or within X amount of hours, right, until next day. So it's not here yet, okay? So I could be wrong. The point is this: go ahead and research it, okay? Don't take people's word for everything, okay? Especially people that we know nothing about personally, right? Even if there's people on TV that I like, but I'm gonna go research and I'm gonna cross-reference and I'm gonna do my due diligence. Why? Because I don't want to believe a lie, right? Because here's why you don't. Lies, I said before, perpetuate, so does the truth, but lies destroy. And the further the lie gets, the deeper and darker it gets, means lack of knowledge, right? Because a lot of times people lie, and so you can lie and not even know it. You don't have the right knowledge in that area, right? Now you didn't have the light, because we can only be judged based upon the light that we're walking in, right? That's one thing I learned. That's how God judges, right? If I'm doing something and I don't have the light, the knowledge, and the information, I'm doing it wrong. You know, you try a job for the first time and you're being trained on something, and then they let you go do something and you do it all wrong. Well, you didn't have the light, right, in that particular area. Maybe something came up in the process of that training that they didn't show you. You see what I'm trying to say? So that's the difference between that. So there's a difference between knowing something and doing something, and not knowing something and doing something. So I just freed some of you with that, because that right there had me bottlenecked here with things that I felt guilty about that, I didn't really know, right? And so, but a lot of that has to do with just, being steeped in religion and in religious thinking and all that type of stuff, which affects every human being on this planet too. Different religions also too affect everybody, because they're all interwoven, right? So, all right, let me go ahead and wrap this up right here, okay? So the second one was why. Okay, why am I here? What's your origin? Did you come from an amoeba? Did you just fall out the sky? Did two people just bump heads and all of a sudden, voila, there you are, right? There you go. No, there's a biological thing that had to happen, but not only a biological thing, that biological thing that we couldn't see with our naked eye, there was a spiritual thing, right, that had to happen also too, for all of us to come into fruition. Isn't that pretty deep? Okay. So why am I here? You should go back to that. If you haven't written that down, who am I? Why am I here? Okay. If you don't understand, how can I put this? A lot of people are frustrated because they don't realize, let me put it like this. A lot of people are angry and frustrated because they know, remember I said Genesis 1:26? Let us, talking about the Trinity, make mankind in our image, in our likeness. Spiritual characteristics, and we function like the Creator. Now, there's people that you may follow online, and they may show you how to do this. Okay, great. And you show you how to do this. And most of that stuff that they're talking about is natural stuff. Now, we need to learn natural stuff. We need to learn certain things, right? But here's what I'm combining. I'm talking about the spirit, the soul, and the body. I'm combining the whole man. Because if you are only free spiritually, right? You're spiritually alive, right? You bowed your knee to the king. You got washed in his blood, and your name is written in the government records, right? So when you give up the ghost, when you die, when you part from that flesh, right? You go back to the home country. That's where we came from, the kingdom of heaven. And then your body goes into the dust of the ground, because that's what happened, right? When he made Adam, we all came out of Adam. So whatever he spoke to Adam, he was speaking to us. My gosh, I just said something right there. Next time you eat a vegetable or fruit that has a seed, take a look at it and put it in your hand and say, oh my gosh, in this seed right here is a converting mechanism. There's an image inside here. And if I plant this image, this converting mechanism, this tool, this life in the ground, and the law of death and life, and I get the chlorophyll from the sun, and I get the rain and moisture and everything like that, that's going to bear fruit, a bush or a tree, and there's going to be like-minded fruit that comes from that, or likeness, right? If it's a strawberry tree, it's going to grow strawberries. If it's an orange tree, it's going to grow oranges, right? Almond tree, so on and so forth. So that's what it was for you and I. Are you listening to me? Okay. We came out of that seed. I raised this tree right here, but you remember that seed? I had that seed right there. Okay. I had that seed right here. We all came out of that one seed, Adam. So when you read in the Constitution in Genesis, the book of the beginnings, we all came out of that. Now, let me ask you this right here. I wasn't going to say this, but let me ask you this right here. This is a thought-provoking question. We came out of one seed. We're man and woman, right? We're not a citizen, we're not a person, we're not a resident. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's CPR. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look that up. I'm just kind of dropping some hits here or there. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. How did we produce, everything produced after its own kind, right? When I was born, I didn't come out looking like an elephant, right? I didn't come out an elephant, right? When my mom and dad bumped together, right? When they had relations, right? I didn't come out as an elephant, right? I'll get that later. Actually, I'll get that now. I don't want this thing to dry up. When you were born, did you come out a monkey? Did some of you come out a fish? No, everything produces after its own kind. So I prove to you, if you're atheist listening to me, I prove to you right there. Everything produces after its own kind. Okay, so let me get to my question. Here's a thought-provoking question, and I'm done, okay? How did we get over here with this religion, with that religion, and all of its religion? How do we get over here, okay? How do we get off the main, let me see, how can I put this? How did we get off of God's precept that we were supposed to have dominion over the earth and not each other, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowls of the air, the birds of the air, and everything that creepeth on the ground? How did we become afraid of what we were supposed to have dominion over? Now, I didn't say destroy. I said have dominion. Dominion means to manage, to grow, to change in a positive direction. Dominion means to dominate it, right? To harness it, not to destroy it, not to hurt it, right? How did we get from his precept that was programmed into Adam, which means it was programmed to us? That's how you and I got here over 6,000 years later. Everything produced after its own kind, right? This person met this person over here, and this person traveled over here, and that's how we all got to. How do we get off on the same page where we as human beings, when we come together, spirit, soul, and body, we got to be on the wrong track, right? So here is that's my question. How? Okay. So I talked about this a week or two ago. So how do I want to say this? Or do we want to even get into this right now? Because I have to close up. Let's just say this. It was contaminated, okay? This precept right here, the idea of Genesis 1, that's an S, 26. I would say in the NIV. This is your programming. This is why you get frustrated. This is why I get frustrated. Because every person has a vision. Every person has a purpose. And the purpose is, why are you here? And if you don't know what your vision is, right, that's your why, then guess what? You're going to be frustrated. If you're just chasing money, if you're just chasing entertainment, if you're just chasing material things, if you're just chasing sex, If you're just chasing things that are frivolous, you're going to be angry and frustrated. And guess what happens when we are frustrated and angry? We become bitter. This seed right here at the bottom gets poisoned, right? And if you've ever been to let's say a family blood, I'm talking about blood now, family cookout, or a person invited you out to a cookout, and okay, not everybody's the most positive chippy. Okay, I'm not always. Okay, I have to check my attitude. Sometimes my helpmate, she has to check my attitude. Sometimes my kids have to check my attitude, right? That means my precepts, my thinking isn't right. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm going off on a tangent over here, whatever it is. Maybe I ate the wrong things, right? Maybe I didn't drink enough water, or maybe I'm eating something that they put poison in, right? Little by little, incremental poisons in food, water, air, and so on and so forth. And it's having an effect on me, right? So maybe I got to fast or something or do something like that, right? I have to go to the pit stop, right? Like a NASCAR. Every once in a while, everybody has to go to a pit stop, okay? Man, I've been dropping a lot of nuggets here or there. So that seed gets contaminated, right? And that messes up our precept. So again, my question would be, how do we get off on tangent? Okay, here's the greater question right here. How do we get back? If I place this book, okay, I'm going to show you something. I'm out of here. You won't get this at work tomorrow. You won't get this, most likely you won't get this at your church, at your synagogue. You won't get this at your, whatever it is. All right, let's say I'm out of here, but before I get out of here, let's say I put this circle right here. Okay? And let's say one of my children come behind me later on and they erase this. This is what I call the OG. Oh no, OP. Original purpose. Genesis 1:26. That's you and I. That's our original purpose, right? Okay. I didn't get straight A's in English, right? They didn't teach me too much in English. Guess what? They didn't teach you a lot in English too. They didn't teach us about law, English, Latin, and Hebrew. That's another nugget. I'm reiterating the nugget I just told you about that. You should learn what words mean, because words can put you in a bind if you don't know what they mean. You're part of a contract or something of some sort. You sign something that will keep you bound, keep you a slave, right? What do you think the word U.S. citizen is? The Act of 1873 by Abraham Lincoln. Okay? U.S. citizen means employee. Why? Because the United States was incorporated. Think about what I just said. So if you're part of a corporation and you're an employee of a corporation, employee means slave. That came from Europe, right? That's where the Greeks come from. You trace history. I learned that some years ago. That means slave, right? That's what employee means. Hey, don't be mad at me, okay? Most of my life I was one, okay? Now I have to deal with them. Now I attract great team members. I don't like to call them employees because they're not my slave. I don't have dominion over them, right? Anyway, so this is your original purpose right here, okay? This is what I was telling you before. Genesis 1:26. You should read that whole chapter of Genesis. This is talking about you, whether you believe this or not. That's programmed inside of you. That's programmed into your genes. That's programmed into your genes, spirit, and your soul. And that's why you get frustrated, because you don't know this and you're not applying this. Okay? This is a principle right in there, right? And that has to do with the law of management. But anyway, let me go ahead and wrap this up. So this is the original spot. Okay. I turn this off. When I'm done, I go away, and one of my kids come behind me, And what they do is they change it, right? So this was the original purpose. They erase it. Sometimes you need to see it 3 times. That's called the law of 3. Okay? I'm going to do it again. This is the original place that I placed it. Okay? I did that for a reason. See, what I'm doing is I'm psychologically trying to break down strongholds in your mind. At the same time I'm doing that, I'm breaking strongholds down in my mind. What are strongholds? Look up the word stronghold. Essentially, it's like you ever seen Maze Runner? That's what a maze is like, right? But they're things that you believe about you that aren't true. Okay? That's basically what a stronghold is, and it's a pattern. Okay? A pattern of thinking, of precepts about you, because how you see yourself is how you see the world and how you treat other people. Okay? Now, so one of my kids comes and puts it down here. That's not the original part. That's not the original place that I placed that right there, right? So what the Lord did, what the owner and ruler and the creator did is that he said, all right, I gave you guys Genesis 1:26. And by the way, this has everything to do with business. Okay? Everything. Because a little bit later on, or maybe before that, he gives us 4 principles or laws of how to be successful. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue. What are you talking about, Tyreek? Your gift. Be fruitful, not babies. Nick Cannon. But anyway, that means to produce in the Hebrew, right? Produce. Produce. I go to the store and I get produce. I got to get that banana. Bananas came from a banana tree. That tree was formed by a seed. That seed was in the right environment. It was in the ground, right? Activating a law, okay? So anyway, produce something. That means create a product or service. See, I told you had a gift in you. I told you your future's in you. If you're poor, it's because you think you attract poverty. And wherever you see poor naturally, like, check this out. Here's another tip. The poorest parts in your area, that's where you'll see the most greed at. I'm going to say that again. The poorest parts in your area, I don't care whatever, trailer park, ghetto, whatever it is, that's where you'll see the most greed at. Here's another tip. Your roads. The more tore up your roads are, wherever you're from, the more greed there is. I think on that one. All right, that was for free right there. Oh, man. All right, so I'm done, guys. That's it. Get back to the basics, please. Those 5 questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I from? Right? What can I do? My gifts. Where am I going? Those 5 questions right there are vital for success in life. Okay. So I'm done. Oh, and don't forget again, the important versus urgent. Get a book. That's what I did. Get a leadership book and learn how to prioritize stuff. Why are you going to listen? What? I guess after you understand that where poverty is, there's greed, and you still continue to invest in things that keep you poor mentally, because remember I said money does not exist, right? Money's just energy. It's attracted, it's repelled or attracted to you, okay? It's because it's basically you willfully chose, the God-like choice to, I don't care, right? Or maybe because that the mechanisms that are in place that cause you whether it be toxic food, toxic water, toxic air, toxic friends, toxic family members, all the stuff that comes at entertainment, all that stuff that comes at your mind, your brain, and doesn't allow you to allow that seed to be planted in the right environment and to grow. When you do that, you're doing that on purpose and to your own detriment, and not just you. See, you think it's just you. I used to think that years and years ago. Oh man, my choices, that's me. That's making my choices. Hey, what did I say earlier? You're influencing somebody, right? You are influencing someone, even if it's just one person. But I believe it's more than that, because you can tell somebody something that's truth, and that person goes and tells somebody else. I bet you didn't think about that before. I said that before, but I need to reiterate again. And before you know it, 6 months from now, 100 people know what you just said originally, right? It doesn't matter your background, right? All of us have some type of expertise or things that we've mastered to some degree, or looking to master, or trying to master to some degree, that we can share with somebody else who doesn't have that knowledge in that area, and they tell somebody else. You see what I'm going with this? Is that seed, right? That precept came out of your mind, right? And you told that person your concept, your idea, and they went off, they researched, and they say they validated it, and they started telling other people, and they started telling other people. You see, I told you everything starts from the inside out. That's what I call the law. I call the law of input and output. Okay, you should write that down. That's called the law of input and output. Everything works from the inside out. Okay, so I'm done. Get back to your original purpose. That's what I'm doing. That's what I am excited about. That's what I'm passionate about, is try to invoke, to ignite something inside of you to make you angry, right? Because if you're afraid and if you're scared, you got to have emotion that's higher than the emotion that you already have. And here's another tip: cut the crap off. Whatever's causing you fear, right? I had to get on one of my family members who was very close and dear to my heart, right? I can say this because I have that person's respect. Cut it off. Or if you can't, if you're so addicted to it, cut it back little by little. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But that stuff is changing your DNA. It's changing your frequency in your brain, right? It's causing all kind of friction in marriage and relationships and at work and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? So look up on this stuff. You are intrinsically invaluable. Okay? Everybody needs your gift. Let me qualify that. The gift that you have, X amount of people, I don't know who that is, needs your gift. Okay? I don't care how old you are, I don't care how young you are, I don't care what your background is, I don't care where you're from, I don't care what happened to you. If you still have breath in your lungs, please read that Constitution. Please. If you're a part of a different religion, my question to you is this, and I'm done. How's that working for you? Jesus Christ didn't bring a religion. He brought a kingdom. When you understand what a kingdom is and the concepts of a kingdom, you understand what the Bible is. See, I had doubts before, especially being in Christianity. And some of you know me personally, and you're like, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was on the fence. I'm like, something's not right, right? It's kind of like, here's an example of that, when something is not right. When you take the city that you're in, or the county that you're in, you should do this. No, please do this for your sake. Because you're worth at least $100 million. And I'm not saying, and that's true. I'm not going to get on that right now. But here's an example of that. Take your city, take your county, look at the overall population of citizens there. Okay? And look at the budget of your city in your county and see if that correlates for every man and woman. Okay. And I promise you, 100%, it doesn't add up. Something's wrong. And many of you know what I'm talking about. So that's what it's like. Okay. So I'm done. I will see you guys next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Kingdom Diplomat Podcast Season 1, Episode 30. Is it 30 or 31? I forgot to write it down. But anyway, you guys have a great night. Be fruitful. Please write down those 5 questions. Please take time out for yourself and answer those questions. Even if it's just one a week, one question a week, take some time out. Block all the noise out. That's how you're going to win in life, okay? At whatever level that you are supposed to win. I believe that you're supposed to be as big as the moon, right? Because the more people you can help positively, the more people you're going to help for eternity. Here in the natural and beyond. Okay? So, again, you guys have a great evening. Have a great night. If you're new, please subscribe. If you believe I shared something with you that will help you out, please spread the word. If you have any specific topics that you want me to go over, please put in the chat box that I talked about before. I can go through my notes and reiterate it. So I love to hear your feedback. Please like also too. Have a great night. God bless you.